wellness revolution starts now.
Hello, I'm Dr. Steve Hotze. Welcome. I'm here with Jason Gourlas, who's a physician's assistant here at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. We're going to discuss the topic of protein. What is protein? Why is it important in the human body? Why do people have and develop more protein than other people? What happens when we get older and we see people lose muscle mass? So, Jason, tell us about protein. What percent of our body weight in the average person would you say is protein?
It's 50% or greater.
Yeah.
And proteins are actually the building blocks of our body. And you think of them actually broken down, even smaller components are called amino acids. And those amino acids, there's 20 of them. 9 of them are what are called essential amino acids. And so you actually have to get them from your diet. And a lot of protein researchers would actually say that you need to get all of the amino acids from your diet because in our modern society, it's very difficult to produce and even create some of those non-essential amino acids. And some of them become what are called conditionally essential amino acids. In different circumstances, you need more of those. But what people don't realize is that protein is not just our muscle, it's not just our bone, but it's the components of our immune system, so our immune globulins and complement. It's enzymes, it's hormones like insulin. All these things are important, but probably the most important thing that we should probably discuss as we get older is muscle. And so muscle tends to be just thought of as something that we use to move around, although our heart is muscle and it moves our blood around in our body. Our small intestine, our gastrointestinal tract is full of muscle, and that moves our food through our digestive tract. But muscle is profoundly important for our metabolism. The more lean muscle mass you have, the higher your metabolism will be. The more sensitive you are to insulin, which is probably one of the major drivers of chronic disease today, is insulin resistance and inflammation. And that's also interesting when we talk about inflammation because muscle is not just for those things, but it's also probably a big endocrine organ in our body. And an endocrine organ is something that secretes chemical signaling molecules to other portions of our body. So it can help stimulate our brain through something called BDNF. It helps modulate our immune system through what are called interleukins. It also helps with browning of fat. So white fat is inflammatory fat. Brown fat has more mitochondria, so it's more metabolically active, and that also increases our metabolism. So those are some of the less well-known facts about muscle.
So what's the best source of your amino acids to build your proteins?
Well, so there's amino acids in a lot of our foods, but when you're talking about a complete source of amino acids, and we're talking about a couple other important aspects of protein are digestibility and absorbability, and the rate at which things can be digested and absorbed, then animal proteins are by far the most valuable when it comes to our diet. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get what you need from plant-sourced or plant-derived proteins.
Can you get all the essential amino acids from plant sources?
In soy, you can, but there's some issues with soy, and a lot of it's genetically modified, and it's not as available as animal-sourced or animal-derived proteins. So as a vegetarian or vegan, you need to have protein sources from a wide variety. So legumes and other vegetables and things like that, nuts, seeds, so that you get a complete source of all those, complete complement of those amino acids. The problem with that is that you need to eat a lot more potentially, and those are all sources of carbohydrates, and that can drive insulin resistance if you're not physically active and you're not eating the right sources of those plant-derived proteins.
So you're talking about being physically active has a significant effect on your ability to utilize insulin.
It sure does. Physical activity predominantly against resistance. And so as we get older, something called sarcopenia ensues, and we are...
Define sarcopenia.
Sarcopenia is a loss of muscle mass. Okay. And so that loss of muscle mass happens particularly in a type of fiber called a type 2 muscle fiber. And so that is the muscle fibers that are involved with moving against resistance. Walking is typically like a type 1 muscle fiber. So you actually have to lift weights or do body weight exercises, resistance bands, machines, any of those things on a regular basis to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So you need to eat the protein, which also stimulates muscle protein synthesis, but you also need to move your muscle. There's a synergistic effect to overcome that sarcopenia, something called anabolic resistance. As you get older, your muscles are less apt to use those proteins, and sadly, as we get older, we're also less apt to use the muscles that we have. And so it's that combination of factors, eating enough protein, moving against resistance, that allows you to make and maintain your lean muscle mass, that provides that insulin sensitivity for your body.
Okay. What would be, in an average, say, 175-pound male, how much protein would they need? And just say their exercise program is nothing more than they walk a mile a day. Or maybe they jump rope for 10 minutes and they're not doing any resistant exercise. What would be the proper amount of protein for them to take?
Well, there's a lot of controversy around that. The RDA, which is probably just the minimum amount that you need to survive, is 0.8 grams per kilo. And so that...
We'll it up to 1 gram per kilo, so it'd be 70... So if you weigh 70 kilograms, you take 70 grams, and there's 28 or 30 grams in an ounce. So that's really not very much.
It's not. And
2.5 ounces. Huh?
Right. So if you're more physically active, you would need more. And the range optimal goes anywhere from maybe 0.9 grams per kilogram, anywhere up to 2 grams per kilogram. So
depending on your activity?
Depending on your physical activity, your age. When you're younger, you don't have that anabolic resistance, so your body's more apt to use the protein that it's getting. But when you're older, you definitely need to hit those higher amounts so that you can stimulate muscle protein synthesis.
And I would say this, I think testosterone we know plays a significant role in muscle, in the development of muscle. You know, young boys go from being little skinny kids and all of a sudden, and with high squeaky voices, and all of a sudden testosterone kicks in and you know, they get muscular and they get a deep voice and they start growing whiskers. So testosterone has an effect on male physique and male muscle development. You know, the testosterone not only affects brain function, initiative, assertiveness, sense of well-being, self-confidence, moods, goal orientation, drive, directedness, and decisiveness. All are brain functions. So the hormones, male and female, both have a profound effect on our cognitive abilities and how we think. But they also have testosterone has a real profound effect on muscle development, and so and also on cardiovascular function. So I think we see. I'm at the golf club, and so I see the guys coming in and out of the locker room, and coming in and out of the shower, and look at them, and the older guys, boy, they have sarcopenia. Mm-hmm. They've lost muscle mass, and they're kind of hunched over, and they kind of have a whitish or grayish appearance. You know, they're not ruddy looking. And remember, testosterone also stimulates red cell production. So people with testosterone tend to have, when they're younger, they have higher red blood cell counts. Hemoglobin and hematocrit are higher than guys that are in their 70s or 80s. They tend to be much lower. But testosterone, I think probably one of the reasons we see the sarcopenia is that men lose their testosterone levels, and you can supplement that. And I highly recommend you doing that because I like to say testosterone can put a tiger back in your tank. It can affect the way you think about the future, your goal orientation. It can help you with your muscle tone, cardiovascular function, and it's a very powerful hormone. So you might consider that is if you're involved in any kind of exercise program, you ought to consider testosterone. This can be followed very simply with some blood tests. You keep it within a physiological dose range, and you're going to do well. Your red blood cells come up. You look ruddy again. If you work out at all, you tend to be able to develop muscle mass, and you don't lose muscle mass. So testosterone is something I think that is worth considering as you mature. And I'm 73 now. I started taking testosterone when I was 46 and haven't missed it since. And I'm still going strong. And, even if I keel over tomorrow, nobody's going to say I lingered at all. So that's the way you want to be. We want to be full of vitality and energy in life. And Jason's one of our providers here. So if you would like to come in and come under Jason's care or one of our other providers' care, and you want to get yourself on a path of health and wellness naturally, I highly recommend that you call us at our number. They're on the screen, and talk to one of our new guest consultants, and we'll be glad to do that. Jason, thank you for your discussion about protein and the importance of protein and how to develop good muscle tone and muscle mass and why that's important for your overall health, and how we can what we can do to increase our muscle tone and muscle mass and keep from losing our muscle tone and muscle mass as we get older. Thanks for joining us today and visiting about that.
My pleasure.
At Physicians Preference Pharmacy, we believe that prescription drugs are commonly overprescribed, treating symptoms only rather than addressing the underlying condition. These drugs offer a temporary fix, but they don't solve the root cause of the problem. Our approach is not about overloading people with medications that offer only a temporary fix. It is so important to recognize that you do not get sick because you have a low level of pharmaceutical drugs in your blood. You get sick because you are deficient in something or because your body is not in balance. As part of your healthcare team, we work with your doctor to restore that healthy balance. Sometimes this means replacing hormones, vitamins, nutrients, or even antioxidants. So how is this different than traditional treatment? Rather than covering up the symptoms with yet another medication, we work to replenish the body, restoring your health and restoring your wellness.
Information provided on this program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application of the recommendations from this program is at the listener's discretion.